Welcome into SportsSource.tv. This is our overtime segment. Appreciate you joining us right here every single Sunday afternoon or Monday afternoon or Tuesday night, whenever you're watching this online. Joined by Bob Hodge, freelance contributor to the Knoxville News Sentinel, Jimmy Hyams, who hosts Sports Talk Monday through Friday on WNML 99.1 and 990, former Division I basketball coach Houston Fancher, former Vol staff member Mark Pancratz right down there. They do a Coach's Corner podcast. Is it sportsradiownml.com? There you go. Okay. That's where you can find their Coach's Corner podcast. This segment of our show brought to you by Jinx Logos. You see it right there? You see it back there on the wall. Jinx Logos and their phone number, 755-7767. When it comes to promotional items, no one in East Tennessee does a better job than these guys. For that matter, nobody in Kentucky, North Carolina, Tennessee, or Ohio, places I've lived and dealt with these companies, nobody does a better job than Jinx Logos. Shirts, caps, mugs, whatever. Give Jimmy Andrews and his team a call. They can help you out. All right. Guys, we touched on this a little bit during the show on the Kevin Stallings thing. He went off, got caught on camera, big kerfuffle over the whole thing. But the question is, how much of this reaction that, a coach can't talk like that? You actually had people saying he should be suspended or fired for saying, I will blanking kill you to a player, which I'm pretty sure he didn't mean. I'm pretty sure he never meant he was actually going to kill him. Does that say more about the current society as a whole? Does that say something about athletes today because you see so many transfers from stuff like that? Does it say coaches are, times have changed. Coaches need to catch up. What's your take on this?
I'm going to go with a whole lot of society has changed. I'm going to go with some of number two, and I'm going to say about number three is you can't talk like that out in public because everything is now recorded. He was on television. He should have known it. Possibly a camera got it. I think he stepped over the line with it. But everything these days is recorded. But it all comes back to there are people who aren't around athletics. They're not around coaches, be it high school or college or NFL, and they're shocked by this stuff. And they shouldn't be. It used to be, to me, a lot worse than it is now. Well, I think guys have pulled way back on this stuff.
Well, I mean, you got guys, and part of this ties back to the Tennessee football, the transfer issue. A lot of people transferring out of here. Most of us all agree that it's about playing time. You've got some people who've said, no, it's because Butch Jones is a mean guy. He talks dirty to him. They can't take it. He's an ogre to play for. I don't think he's taken to Junction, Texas yet. I don't think they've become the Junction Boys yet. I don't think he's the great Santini throwing balls off their heads. So has the modern athlete changed because of the fact that everyone now gets a trophy, everyone's an MVP? Jimmy, you touched on that a little bit during the show.
Well, yeah, go ahead. I'm going to let the coaches talk.
Well, here's what I would say right now to me, and I'll go back to what we said earlier. I think, what you allow is what you encourage. And I think Kevin was trying to step in there and squelch a problem right away while he had a chance to. Now, he handled it the wrong way. He shouldn't have used the language to use and get caught on TV or whatever.
Right.
But at the same time, I think the kid responded well. I think he handled it well, and I think that's just, an edgy coach and an edgy player. But once again, what you allow is what you encourage, and Kevin wasn't going to allow things to happen that way. And you've seen him run players off before. There's a number of Keaton Johnson, Dejon Parker. Those guys aren't there anymore.
He has a lot of transfers.
That's exactly right, because they can't play for him. Now, those guys played a lot. But they also had their own problems before they got to Kevin Stallings.
But see, I want to take it off the Stallings and aim it more toward the bigger issue of coaches and players today. Would you feel, if you were a head coach today, that you had to handle things differently than you did maybe 10, 15 years ago?
No. 26 years ago, I'd still be doing the same thing I'm doing right now then, because I want to be the same person I always have been, and I don't think that should change. Now, the way you recruit, I think, is what you got to look at. You look at the kids you recruit and bring into your program, you have an idea about the package before they get to you. Now, what I always did before the season started is I let my parents know right away in our first meeting is that if you want to talk to me, you talk to me through your child. Let's let your child grow a little bit. And what I told our players was, if your parents contact me, then I'll take it out on you, in which I ended up doing. So I never got any phone calls from parents during the entire season for the last 20 years of my carear. So I think our players grew up that way, because if they wanted to have if they had an issue, they came to me instead of having their mom and dad call.
Well, and what Fancher did right there, and what coaches need to do is the level of expectations. If in the recruiting process, when you bring a kid on campus, you're going to go and conduct a practice that is not a accurate representation of how you normally coach, Well, then a player and the family, when they come on campus to play for you, if all of a sudden they're getting cussed at, and it's just miserable for them, well, then they're going to transfer. But if a kid signs up to come to Tennessee, whether it's football, basketball, whatever it is, and he knows what he's getting himself involved with, and then he transfers because he's not playing, that's a whole different story. If you know what you're signing up for, you got to deal with it because you obviously liked what you saw when you came in the recruiting process.
Houston, you said you didn't change in 25 years. You probably 25 years ago were reasonable. But a lot of coaches 25 years ago were not. Even Pat Summitt said she changed. She mellowed, that she was too hard on players, maybe too demeaning at times. Bobby Knight didn't change. What happened to him? Now, Mike Krzyzewski, I mean, there aren't many coaches out there that use more brutal language than he does during the course of a game. But he's hailed as a great coach and role model and all that. But he also has changed some. And I think that a lot of times coaches have to change and pull back and mellow a little bit in dealing with the modern athlete today, because I think the modern athlete has changed.
To draw an underline under the O'Neal, the Krzyzewski thing, Kevin O'Neal 20 years ago, I did a television thing where I mic'd him up for a game. And you talk about editing. There was a lot of editing going on. And his comment to me, he laughed, and he just said, "You couldn't even do this at all with Coach K." He said, "People have no idea." Right. And that was O'Neal saying, "Oh, wow. Lord, Krzyzewski's got me beat." And people around here remember Kevin O'Neal and how he talked. You were going to say something.
Whether it makes it right or wrong, the older era, it was just sports stayed within sports. Now, because everything is with Twitter and Facebook and social media world, everything is bleeding into everything. And so now people within the university, the higher ups there, if something's done that they don't like or they don't agree with or they've never seen before, now they're to act based off what they've experienced in their tenure doing with whatever they do, as opposed to knowing how really the sports world works. And there is, you're held to a accountability factor, and the communications are just different.
And then there's another side to it, Bob. You've done youth coaching for years. There's the other side of things where you do have some youth coaches who treat 5th and 6th graders like they're 18 years old.
Yeah.
And that's the other side of the equation.
And we learned early on, I mean, as the guys that I coached with as both of my sons grew up, we learned, we drew the parameters. Sometimes early on we got over those parameters and we realized, gosh, we've gone too far. We're treating them like they're too old, because most of us had played high school sports, played college sports, and so we were used to being coached that way.
Right.
So we had to, we kind of learned as we went along. But I'll tell you something else. You talk about the athletes have changed, you talk about the coaches have changed. Parents have probably changed more than either one of them. And when both of my children were little, they would have friends come over and I would tell their parents, I want you to know, while your son is here, he will get minimal adult supervision. We've got woods, we've got creeks, we've got streams. They're going to go out and they're going to play and they're going to have a good time. Some of those kids never came back because the parents want to control
because they got
everything.
lost in the woods and the creeks.
Well, I should say,
boys.
I should say they eventually came back.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah.
But they, but parents want to be able to control everything. They put their kid up on a pedestal that kids weren't put up on pedestals 40 years ago, and it affects everything all the way up till they get to you guys in college.
I think that goes back to teaching too, because a lot of times with your kid and the student, the teacher's usually wrong now. Used to be the teacher was always right. No, it's the teacher's fault my kid's struggling. I think that goes back to what you're talking about with society.
Mark, do we just sound like a bunch of old men?
Well, no, I think there's different like Coach hit on. Kevin Stalls was in a teaching moment. He didn't deliver the message the right way, but it was still a teaching moment, as opposed to some coaches that take it a step too far and they're just berating kids for no apparent reason because it's not the same teaching moment.
The guy at Rutgers.
Yes.
Who overstepped the boundaries.
Yes.
Okay. All right, guys, I appreciate it, and we will see you appreciate you for watching. We will see you next Sunday at 11 a.m. on WATE 6 for the Sports Source. Thank you very much.